So, it's been a little while since I've thought about this next book. Um, this is my second book in trying to read 1900 through whenever. So this book obviously would have been published in 1901. Um, this is a book called Buddenbrooks by Thomas Mann. Um, it was his first book, and it was written when he was 26 years old, which is sort of depressing, considering I'm 27, and I just can't imagine having birthed something like this. Um, I actually really enjoyed this book, although I thought I didn't, and it was sort of a slow start, or I thought I wouldn't, and it was sort of a slow start. Um, a nice sort of feel of a book, nice thickness, and a nice size. The book is about a family from Lübeck in northern Germany, and that's the Buddenbrooks family, of course. And you get the idea really early on that you're going to sort of get a view on a pretty wide scope of sort of the demise of a dynasty, this Buddenbrooks family. And so you start out with the patriarch of the family, who's physically quite large, and he's got his sort of flowing, his wisdom sort of spills out in his long white beard, and he just exudes, you know, or demands respect just in his stature and things. And sure enough, having sort of felt the inclination to expect this demise, I was sort of waiting on something to happen, some sort of tragedy to happen, and as it turns out, I guess seeing that you've got well over 580, 595 pages to get through, one shouldn't rightly expect any sort of catastrophical thing to happen around page 100, because that would ruin all the fun. And so sure enough, it's just sort of decays and decays over time, and each generation, to put it simply, does their part to ruin the family in different ways. And some decide not to be involved with the family business at all, and others decide to be involved on a very crucial level, and they make decisions that aren't very beneficial in hindsight. And on top of just the business aspect of it, there's a loss of sort of the name recognition. There's words that I'm thinking of and they're not coming, but anyway, the reputation of this family goes along with sort of the decay of their relationships and their morals and their groundedness in reality, and in the traditions of the day and things, which I guess you could look at it like there's a certain number of the people in the family are aiming to maintain practices and maintain beliefs and maintain systems of being that have worked in the past, and then you've got other people who have rejected all or some of the aforementioned sort of memes, familial memes, societal memes, and they've rejected one or a number of those, and in their rejection, they're in some way sort of rejecting their own family, and then obviously in rejecting their own family, and it's sort of luxury and decadence, they sort of lead to the demise of it, slow and somewhat painful. at times. Speaking of painful, there was a metaphor that I got from an analysis that I was looking at online, which I thought was really quite nice, and I didn't mean to find it online, but I found it online, and I couldn't help but pay attention to it as I read, and that it actually made the cover of my cover of the book, not the cover, my cover of the book. It's a tooth, and so throughout the book, there's this sort of spirit of decadence and of just indulgement is really, really explicit, and I've come to know through looking stuff up and reading some stuff that that's a very Thomas Mann thing, I guess, to do is to be very not use words sparingly and be very overly dense or overly like offering, overly generous, I guess you could say, with the amount of description that goes into both people and their characteristics, and also situations and settings and things of that nature. So one of the things that was described in this really explicit and really vivid detail was the different types of foods that they would be eating. And so early in the book, you get a good sense of the characters in the story as they're having a dinner party, but you also really get you can really sink your teeth, so to speak, into the food, the gastronomical language that he's using, and the food descriptions and stuff. And so sure enough, with all these sweet meats and candied things and heavy cream things, inevitably there's a decay that starts to happen, and one could even argue whether Thomas Mann intended to or not. That kind of stuff is going to sort of rot you from the inside. As a vegan, I feel like, animal products especially, but really highly processed foods, those kinds of things are the things that are just rotting you from the inside, mind, body, and spirit, all at the same time. But beyond all that, fairly explicit in this novel is the metaphor of tooth decay. That correlates with the decay of the family reputation, the family name, and so very interesting characters born a number of generations down the line. He's the heir to the throne, the name throne, and sure enough, he's born with really, really bad teeth, really small and really frail, brittle little teeth. On top of which his way of interacting and his or avoiding interaction, I guess you could say, is it's not confident, and it's not boisterous, and it's not forward as it was increasingly more so with his father and his father and his father beyond that. So anyway, I was actually quite interested in that, in the youngest Buddenbrooks, male Buddenbrooks. I also was sort of intrigued by one of the levels. There's a set of brothers, and one is determined to keep the business, not keep the business afloat, but keep the business thriving. And it's through some of his dealings, well-intentioned, albeit maybe poorly planned. It's not. They're not all very helpful decisions. And on the other side, you've got his brother, who's sort of very much aloof about the whole thing, and he's traveling around to South America and tooting around and getting sunburned and living quite a bit of more of a vagabondish life and existence. And anyway, he was an interesting character. Speaking of interesting, the style of writing was maybe not my favorite, but I enjoy it. I appreciate it. I know that it's better than I am willing to am willing to see or probably even understand on a lot of levels. But I it seemed I was bogged down a little bit, but not nearly as much as I am by what I'm reading now, which is The Ambassadors by Henry James, and I'll get to that one later. But anyway, second book, Buddenbrooks. I definitely recommend it. It was a really incredible experience to have over the course of a week or so. I don't regret it for a moment. As far as whether or not I'll read more Thomas Mann, I do not know. In that this was his first book, I've got, I think, around like 50 years or so of his writing. And I know I own Magic Mountain, so I might consider reading that one, depending on what year that came out and when what other books were published that year. So anyway, good book, read it, and I'll see everyone. I won't see anyone. You will see me soon. Adios.